I'm surprised that you're,
Phillips
I
City.
expect that Wilson will win.
Wilson will win.
I think she needs to win.
She'll win.
You think she will?
Yeah.
I think she will too.
Question on the sheets outside, because that either
Yeah,
you have
well,
some
she's-
sheets for
that-
anyone wanting
I mean,
to
it'll be a
speak on the
challenge.
agenda. Is Aaron going to be?
Usually the R.
It does.
Because we'll need
I'm not
them
happy
right
with
at the get-go. Oh,
Ibarra.
Yeah. She's had a tough job. I don't think she
ask.
actually.
I think we need to find
You mean to go
out.
see if you can bring them out primary?
Well,
There's
we'll
like
need
3 or
them.
4 other candidates.
Let's look at the agenda.
We'll need them
Because we're limiting it to 5 people, so let's just,
after the proclamation.
okay. Did you actually put a sign-up sheet out there? I think you did.
There was one for agenda items, but not listed on it.
Jonathan Pyle.
Okay,
I
perfect.
think we.
Well, that's okay.
He's Jonathan Pyle.
That,
So we'll be okay.
Do you want me to go
What?
talk to Darren?
Yeah, let's just have him. Well, good evening. It's a few minutes after 6, and I'm sorry we're just a couple minutes late. Welcome this evening, and welcome to our people that are online viewing. We always appreciate those that join us, however they choose to join us. So as we get started this evening, Jonathan Pyle with West Valley Baptist Church is here to join us. And are you Jonathan? I am. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you earlier. Thank you for opening us in prayer, and following your prayer, we'll do the pledge.
Okay,
So we'll
very
all
good.
stand.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's pray. Father, I do thank you for the blessing it is to live in a community like this, and I thank you for the leaders that you have given to our community, the women and the men. Thank you for our mayor and for the city council. And Lord, being very new to this community, it's obvious that a lot of thought and a lot of hard work is put into developing and to protecting and encouraging our community. And so I pray tonight you would continue to give wisdom and a good spirit. I don't know what items are on the agenda to be discussed, but I do pray that you would help that to go well and to be accomplished in a way that would be pleasing to you and be helpful for the people of Nampa. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
So Jonathan, I have a quick question for you. I don't normally ask a question, but you
that's fine.
mentioned you're new to the community.
We are. My family and I moved up here about a month ago from
Where-
Oklahoma.
From Oklahoma, where in Oklahoma?
Stillwater, Oklahoma
That is-
State University. In fact, our last weekend there was the weekend Boise State. I'm not no OSU fan. It was that weekend. That was our last Saturday in Stillwater.
Really? Oh, that is great. Well, we'll have to connect.
Absolutely.
Welcome to our community.
you
We're
very much.
glad you're
Thanks for the
here.
opportunity.
Yes, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Bruner?
Here.
Hogaboom? Here. Levi?
Present.
Haverfield?
Here.
Let's go.
Here.
Okay, so now we're looking at the consent agenda, and as we know under the new legislative stuff that we really are not to be adding anything to the agenda, so we could take something off, though. Is there anything that needs to come off the agenda? Sandy?
Mayor, may I make one correction or point out a possible correction?
Thank you.
On item 1.7, letter A, and on the first page of the contract, attachment A, under Article 1, the date is October 1st, 2017, and I'm just wondering if that's a typo?
I think the person that can answer that question happens to be sitting here. Good catch, Sandy.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Council Levi, was it on the agenda or the item itself?
It is on 1.7A, and then when I clicked on it, it brings up the letter and then the attachment.
What page?
Page 73
Yeah, 74, I think.
or 74?
74, excuse me, thank you.
So the scope of work that we have is for 2019. I wonder if there was a error in the link. Let me grab my computer.
Okay, so on which page did you say? 74, because I was looking at 75 and it's 2018.
Mayor, Councilman?
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman, sorry, Levi, Ms. Levi. Are you referring to the letter from CH to M. Hill?
It's the next page right under the letter. And it's page 74, that's what's coming up on my packet. And it says Attachment A, Software Support, Article 1, Scope of Services. Per the miscellaneous professional services term, agreement terms, and conditions dated October 1st, 2017.
So, yes, so that's the master agreement that they signed in 2017 that outlines the contract terms. And what the item is for is a scope of work or task order that will be performed under that 2017 agreement.
Okay. And then going back to the letter, the page prior, the same thing where it's dated October 1st, 2017, is that it's referring back to that?
Correct. That was the agreement with the consultant. And then tonight's item is a task order to perform specific work under that agreement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions regarding the consent agenda? If not, I would stand for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
This is when we get to go over our proclamations. We have 3 proclamations this evening, and the first one is the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW, Buddy Poppy Days. And I will read the proclamation, and then I'll have those that are present come forward if you'd like to share for just a couple minutes. So, whereas the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by governmental leaders since 1922, and whereas VFW Buddy Poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and needy veterans and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans. And whereas the basic purpose of the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. Now therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, Idaho, do hereby proclaim November 8, 9, and 10 as VFW Buddy Poppy Days. And I do urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing to its support through your donations for Buddy Poppies on the day set aside for the distribution of these symbols of appreciation for the sacrifices of our honored dead. I also urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as mute evidence of their gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. So do we have someone here today from the VFW? I don't see anyone here today. That said, what an opportunity this week as we celebrate Veterans Day to be mindful of those who have given their years of service, and many have given their lives on behalf of this country, and it is greatly appreciated. So, the next proclamation we have is Extra Mile Day, and I don't believe there's anyone here for this one. Is there anyone here with Extra Mile? Yeah, I don't believe there is. So, this is, it's a little bit like our Kindness Day. Whereas Nampa, Idaho is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Nampa, Idaho is a community that encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Nampa, Idaho is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Nampa, Idaho acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 575 extra mile cities in America, and we're proud to support Extra Mile Day. So I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim November 1, 2018 to be Extra Mile Day. And I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day, how about this week, to go the extra mile in his or her own life, but also to acknowledge all those who inspirationally in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, and the world a better place. You know what's neat about proclamations? Even if they're not here, they're inspiring. Would you agree? I mean, that makes me think about going the extra mile, and I tell you what, we have some amazing citizens that do exactly that. And I have to say, the Idaho Press Tribune recently hosted the Spotlight Awards, and that was an amazing night if anyone has ever gone, where they acknowledge, but I love it, it's our everyday citizens that sometimes aren't acknowledged, that have gone the extra mile and made a difference in this community, which is really, it's commendable. So I appreciate the Press Tribune and that work. So our last proclamation, and we do have people here to speak to this one, and I'll read it, and then we'll give you the proclamation. It is Nampa Career Development Month, and it's actually, the mayors across the Treasure Valley have adopted this and have issued a proclamation as the Idaho and the Treasure Valley Career Development Month. But I thought we're going to do this for Nampa, and this is, whereas comprehensive career development support is vital to provide career exploration, planning, education, and work-based learning solutions for all Idaho citizens, regardless of age, race, gender, or ability level. And whereas career development services contribute to Idaho's economic prosperity by preparing youth to enter the workforce and helping workers across the state to pursue career advancement opportunities. And whereas state agencies and local municipalities are creating career readiness and workforce opportunities for Idaho citizens, including the Department of Labor, Vocational Rehabilitation, the Workforce Development Council, and the Office of the Governor of Idaho. Whereas Nampa educators at primary, secondary, post-secondary schools and the State Board of Education, State Department of Education, and Career Technical Education are dedicated to providing the information, training, and professional development necessary to create a skilled Nampa workforce. And whereas community organizations are working to support career development in Idaho, including the Idaho Career Development Association, Idaho Counseling Association, Idaho School Counselors Association, Idaho Business for Education, and the Treasure Valley Education Partnership. Whereas Nampa, Idaho supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2018 to be Nampa Career Development Month. Paula Keller is here, Superintendent of Schools is here to speak to this, and then I also want to just acknowledge Clay Long is with the Nampa School District's Career Technical Education Program and is an amazing asset. Do you have, is there anyone else here tonight from the school district?
Clay,
Yeah.
you should come right on up here. Clay, you should come right on up here. Mayor Clean, Council, thanks for the moment to address. I have Clay up here because part of what I want to share with you has so much to do what he does so very well in our district. So Nampa School District is pleased to join Nampa, the city of Nampa, in this partnership to expand career development opportunities for our students. I'd just take a moment to brag on what we've already done and the partnerships that will continue. Nampa schools encourage career development in several important ways, including encouraging career exploration. Starting in middle school, we encourage business partners and universities to come and sit with our children, our students at lunch, and tell them about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and the pathways that students can pursue in looking at those opportunities. We create four-year plans for each of our students in 8th grade that they pursue through their high school, and they're adjusted and reviewed every year as their interests change. We provide opportunities for job shadowing and internships, particularly at Union High School and Treasure Valley Leadership Academy, but also in our senior project opportunities and our career technical fields, which Clay represents here tonight. We also, thanks to our state government, have college and career counselors. We have one that are dedicated in each of our high schools and a half-time person in each of our secondaries who talk with our students about career opportunities so that they're aware of the choices that are out there for us. We work to prepare our students for the workforce. Clay could tell you more directly about this, but we have 28 pathways in our career technical program. I'm hoping all of you can repeat that at the grocery store. Advisory boards in our key areas are made up of our professionals who come from industry, who give us guidance and who look at our outcomes and give us direction and making sure our students really are career ready. This last year, we graduated 140 students that had industry-certified certificates in hand, demonstrating that they were career-ready. We also work to make sure our students have real-life application. Our STEM Academy at Columbia High School and our project-based learning initiatives across the district are example of these. Pursuing advanced opportunities is another way that Nampa School District partners in making sure that we're ready and supporting career development. This last year, we saw over 775 additional enrollments in our advanced placement courses. When you see that kind of increase, you generally see a decrease in the number of students passing those tests, but we saw an increase in the number of students passing those tests. In addition, 97% of our students who will enroll in concurrent credit earned those credits while they are on our high school campus. This last year, Nampa School District students earned 10,281 credits while they were attending our high schools. We encourage them to fill out their FAFSA forms. We support them. We ask them to fill out college application forms and scholarships. Finally, our partnership and career development extends with the partnerships that we have in our community, with our business, with Idaho Business for Education, with our local communities, our healthcare, our financial institutions, Department of Labor. And we're excited to partner with the city of Nampa in declaring this proclamation valid for the month of November.
Yes. Thank you, and I've got to give this to you. Thank you so much. You know what, I am so proud of our school district, our teams. As I've gone through, I've gotten to spend more time like in the CTA program. It is outstanding. And to see the placement, I know is it the ICAT that is like 99% placement, right? They all go on, right? We have a lot to be proud of in our community, and I just want to say thank you for your leadership. It is awesome. And so, here, why don't we, Amy, do you want to get a picture of them? I'm going to sit down, and this is just for you guys, and you guys can.
Clay, you
Come on,
got a
Clay.
picture.
Yeah, I know he's. I'll sit right here. Thank you. Thank you.
Clay won an award, by the way, Mayor, Council, Outstanding Administrator of the Year Award. So, congratulations on that again. Yeah.
And he's not usually shy either.
Okay, so The next opportunity on our agenda is actually where we have people wanting to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item. We did have a new sign-up sheet out there, so those of you that were intending to speak on an agenda item, we do have a sign-up sheet. And I don't have anyone signed up on an agenda item. Is there, and I do have somebody on a non-agenda item. Is there anyone that had intended to speak on an agenda item that didn't sign up? Raise your hands. I'm not missing anyone. Okay. So on a non-agenda item, Mark Hilty had asked to speak tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I just want to take a minute to introduce Douglas Waterman. He's out here in your audience. Douglas is a recent graduate of the University of Idaho College of Law, and he's also a recent hire at a very prestigious law firm here in Nampa, and so you may be seeing more of him in the coming months. But I wanted to introduce him to the community, but primarily to the mayor and council. Douglas did real well in law school, but one of the things we like to see is he's a good Canyon County boy. He was raised in Caldwell. He is a graduate of Nampa Christian High School and NU.
Yes.
So he'll be around, and again, if any of you are calling my office henceforth and can't get a hold of me or one of my partners, feel free to talk to Douglas. He is going to be plugged in on our municipal practice. Thank you, Mayor.
It was a privilege to see Doug today, and he's heard me say this a couple times today, but I'm going to say it again. So as president of the Nampa Chamber of Commerce back in the day, we did a Future Leader Award, and guess who got that? Doug and David Waterman. The brothers shared it, but it was for the work and their leadership during their time at NNU. So I think we made a good choice, right? You made a good choice. Yeah, future leader in our community, so welcome. Okay, so if we have nothing else, mayor and council comments, I would like to just, a couple comments. One, thank our community for all the volunteers that came up for Rake Up Nampa. We had a great turnout. I'm going to read what Amy wrote for me. Thank you, Amy. Our community had 101 teams who had the honor of raking 105 yards, plus some. Several teams said they wanted to do more and ended up asking the homeowner if there were other neighbors who needed their yard raked. Several of the teams came back and said they were able to do 2 or 3 more properties in the area. I went out and just greeted people, and I have to say, it was amazing the number of students that were out there. We had a number of our schools participate. It was just fun to go see everybody. And from the little kids that were pulled out of bed, the students, even Nampa High in Columbia, you know, the night before they had a football game and it was a late night and they were there. And so it was just great. Great night. I'm just proud of our community. It's just fun to see what an amazing community we have. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that we have an election tomorrow, and so vote. It is so important for people. We have the privilege of getting to vote. And so I already voted early, but if you weren't planning on it, please make sure you educate yourself and please vote. And then lastly, we have a Christmas tree lighting on November 24th, and it's going to be downtown Nampa, and so we'll, just for those that are listening, it'll be a great evening. So I think that's all that I have. Council, do you have any comments? I should have let you go first. No comments?
Go Nampa football? Yeah?
Yes.
all right.
That is way exciting. I hope
Yep.
they win so we can go to the next game, which hopefully will be in this area.
Yes.
So, yeah, pretty exciting.
We're cheering them on. Yes.
Okay, so agency and external communications, we don't have anything tonight, so we're going to move on to staff communications, and we'll start with Tom Points. And Tom, thank you. Okay.
Mayor, councilors, good evening. So for Public Works staff report tonight, I'm going to start with wastewater biosolids management. Out at the plant, after we send the water down Indian Creek, what's left behind are the solids. We dispose of them in the landfill. And currently, we send it to either Pickles Butte out here in Canyon County or out to the Idaho Waste Systems site off Simcoe Road in Elmore County. There's also a third option that we investigated back about a year ago when landfill options were limited. There's a third option in Payette, Idaho, Clay Peak, but They are limited in what they can take. So why am I talking to you tonight? Good news, Pickle Butte, they are approved to accept biosolids. The other good news is, well, the rates went up. I guess that's not a good thing. So, under the biosolids program, Nampa worked with Pickles Butte over the last year. They've been charging a domestic rate of $14.50 a ton. Starting January 1st, they will be charging $21.75 per ton, which is good because that's cheaper than Simcoe, our one other option out there in Elmore County. So the other good thing is staff was on top of it, had anticipated this rate increase, and it is included in the FY19 budget. The other thing going on in wastewater is
Just a quick question, Mayor, for me. How many tons do we average, like in a week or however period of time you want to speak to, Nate?
yeah, so for the last couple of years, we're averaging about 4,500 tons a year. As we go into phosphorus mode, probably in 2020, that's probably going to double or more.
Thanks.
All right. Another wastewater item is the pretreatment annual report. This is part of the NPDES permit compliance for the wastewater plant. It's pretty standard. Every year we compile the monitoring and compliance data on our industrial customers. The big exciting part of this year is staff did a great job and performed and compiled this report all by themselves in-house. So going forward, that's how we plan to proceed, is use our in-house services and resources instead of hiring out. And then the third thing I've got tonight is the irrigation season. So it's done. Hopefully lawn mowing is done. And just give you a couple quick points. City delivered about, what do we got here? 8.7 billion gallons of irrigation water. Wow, that's a lot. So one of the things that came about out of the irrigation rate increase a couple years back was water quality complaints. So over the last 3 years, cities has put over $500,000 into water quality improvements with either adding filters at pump stations or new flush drains strategically located to get the sediment out of the pipe. So as you can see in your packet, complaints that were once close to 30 complaints for water quality back in 2016 have reduced down below 10. We're around 7, 8 now. So seems to be working. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. So do you mind if we talk, Tom, I'm not sure what else you're going to cover, but talk real quickly about the landfill piece, because we had a discussion earlier, and so thank you for mentioning from the biosolids and the impact on the city, that they think the Canyon County almost doubled that. However, you knew in advance and you budgeted accordingly. That's my understanding.
Mayor, that's
Yes.
correct, our budget account.
So I just wanted to let council know that I did reach out to Republic Services, and Rochelle Klein did comment that she does not think this applies to them, but she would get back to me. I did not hear back. So at this time, I don't know, but I'm not anticipating, because the question is, with the landfill increases, what is the impact on our citizens and on the city? So we've budgeted accordingly, and Sandy, thank you for sharing the information that you did with me, which was that, the biggest increase, well, there's several. One, the demolition materials. The increase was from $14.50 to $34 a ton. So for those in the construction industry that are demoing, that's a pretty significant increase. The other one was the biosolids. That's where it went from $14.50 to $21.50, $21.75, right, a ton. And so there were new fees that they added, but those were, I think, the most significant. But is there any other discussion or comment? Randy?
So the rate increases are passed along to the taxpayer or to the citizens of Nampa. These rate increases, it's got to go from, got to be paid by someone. You've got it covered in the budget, but those are still rate increases to the citizens of Nampa. That how did you have foreknowledge of that?
Yeah, Mayor, Counselor, so we've been working with the county, their landfill manager for the last year. He was aware that they were going to be increasing. He anticipated that the increase was going to be somewhere above $20 a ton based on the research that they had done.
So back to as far as the actual rate increases that individual property owners in the city limits are going to see, currently, has that been determined yet, what those rate increases are going to be?
So, Counselor, the biosolids program is part of the wastewater fund budget. So the rate increase that was approved this year for this
Yeah. I'm talking.
includes those costs.
Sorry, I'm just talking across the board. Biosolids, Class A, Class B, whatever, that's not what I'm asking about. And maybe that's a discussion for Republic to weigh in on. What other increases are we going to be seeing as citizens that are because of these rate increases that the county is going to be charging us? You know, I could ask you about Class A, Class B, but I don't want to get down into the weeds on that. But I do, this is a pretty significant rate increase across the board, I would assume. Not just biosolids, not just contractors, waste materials. It's got to be regular pickup of trash as well.
Well, she wasn't sure on that. She did not think there was going to be any increase at Republic. So I think, and she said she'd get back to me, but I did not hear back before this meeting.
These are
So
targeted increases then, is what you're,
right now, the fee increases are demolition materials, hard-to-handle waste. This says large stumps, biosolids, concrete, mobile homes, dead animals, mattresses, drip lines. And, yeah. And then new fees for extraordinary services is a surcharge for uncovered, unsecured loads, digging out boxes, per box $25, and anchoring. So, and then there could be a little bit more, because it's not my area. And I did not have anyone come speak to us tonight from Canyon County, but a question I would have for the council, is that something that you would like us to do? Is to ask for someone to come and speak to why these increases?
You have mine on.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, perfect. We will invite Canyon County commissioners to come speak. And I'm sorry I didn't have it for this time, but we'll ask them to come speak.
Madam Mayor, just one more question. So clarify for me, Nate, if you would, no more than 2 loads per week. This is to Pickle Butte, about 54 tons. Is that 54 tons, the 2 loads are cumulative, or is that 54 tons per load?
Yeah, Mayor, Counselor, that we haul about 25 to 27 tons per load, truck
About
load.
54 tons.
So that's about,
Okay, so the reason for my question is, you said currently we're doing about 4,500 tons per year.
yeah,
So in my math, which is not always real accurate, that tells me at 52 weeks that that's about a little about 2,800 tons, 2,800. So that doesn't cover our 4,500. So are we continuing to go to the other site? And you said once the phosphorus and so on, we'd maybe double. So are we planning on using the other site also?
yeah, we don't have much choice right now. We're using the other site out in Elmore County, and it's $23 a ton.
So we're paying even more going out there continually, and so about half will go to Pickle Butte, and probably about half will go to Elmore County.
Yeah, and it is a bit longer drive.
Yeah, okay. I just see that they are not going to, cover everything that we need to have done, so, okay. Thanks.
Are there any other questions regarding that?
One quick question. I look forward to hearing from them. Was this rate increase part of, say, a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year phased increase that they communicated? Or was this just one time?
Yeah, Mayor, Counselor, what's been communicated to staff is this was a one-time.
Great, thank you.
And then
Thank you,
I'll-
Nate.
Mayor, City Council. Wanted to give you an update on the snow and ice control plan. It's getting cold outside, so we are mobilizing the forces here and getting everything organized. Thursday of this week, we're going to have our kickoff meeting internally. So it's a collaborative effort. Streets, parks helps, water department, wastewater, GIS, and also heavily with our public works admin helps out also. So that is in your bulletin and kind of gives a program for how we're going to tackle snow, and we're expecting the worst, planning for it. Hopefully not a snowmageddon, but we want to be ready for it. So also wanted to give you an update. We had an airport master plan open house a few weeks back. On October 16th, there was 180 people in attendance, and a lot of the people came out wondering whether we were going to extend the runway. It was a little bit of concern. So we let them know that it is highly improbable that we're going to extend that runway. It looks like the design aircraft, which they use to determine the length of the aircraft or the runway, is adequate for where we're at right now. And so in January, we're going to have a follow-up meeting when they have all their data together, and we will confirm that. Also, they were concerned about the extents of our mailer, and so we're extending the extents of the mailer from half a mile to a mile and a half to reach out to more people in that zone. So, is there any questions on that?
The only, Mayor Kling, the only point that I would make in attendance that evening, I think there was a misinterpretation on what the RPZ or what they were looking as far as the runway protection area in seeing an overlap of potential properties or road systems. And that might be something that you might want to touch on, that the actual runway length is not being lengthened. The RPZ area is an overlap area that comes up in the online mapping that's on the City of Nampa's map. So I think it's easy to misinterpret what that is.
Okay,
So-
thank you. We're going to have visuals next time, so we'll have a PowerPoint displaying the actual map, which will be helpful too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So I'll have the last piece of the staff report tonight for Public Works. And we're going to talk about street funding and street funding management. So we're talking specifically about street funding, but this applies to all the funding sources that we manage across Public Works, which includes our enterprise funds, water, and sewer. So I have three items I want to cover in the staff report. One is how we manage bid overages on projects as they open. And then the second one is that I want to touch on this letter on the screen here, which is from Nampa Highway District 1. And some lower than anticipated revenue that would come into streets. And then the last item, we want to declare some in-house project inspection on a Greenhurst project, which will save some consultant dollars and do some in-house work. So we'll start with how we manage projects. What we like to get all our big projects, our larger dollar projects out in the beginning of the fiscal year to try to get the best bids. And then and during that same time frame, we're also holding back some smaller projects. So in case the bigger project gets over the amount that we anticipate, we can stall or stop these smaller projects, and that's how we manage our budget. So we have a case of that in this project on Greenhurst from Midland to Juniper that we've put out to bid. It came in a little higher. Came in a little higher than we thought, and so we need to adjust the smaller project, and that was our safety factor. Also coupled with that, Nampa Highway District wrote us a decision letter that there's going to be 177,000 less coming into the street budgets than we had anticipated in fiscal year 19. So if you recall, in the summer of 19, we'd set a budget, set that there, and then afterwards it was decided that Nampa Highway District was going to tax a special levy more than general levy, which created that difference in funding. So we got 177,000 less. So our recommendation to move forward, because we want to do the bigger project, the Greenhurst Road build from Middleton to Juniper. So we're proposing to cancel a smaller project that we had in the queue, which we had asked for permission to start designing a couple of meetings ago. We have not spent any dollars at all on designing anything yet, and we'd just like to not do that project. It's another segment of Greenhurst just to the east of the larger project. So you'll in the new business items, when we get to it, you'll have a chance to vote on our recommendation that I'm talking about right here. And then lastly, we'd just like to point out, remember that we were, in our workforce plan, we said we're going to save $400,000 by not hiring consultants this year and put it into a project back onto the road. So this is the first of the reports that we'll have for you. We're going to do that work in-house. Normally it would cost $180,000 to hire a consultant to do that. We're going to do that in-house. So that's 180 out of the 400,000. So any questions I can answer?
I just want to say thank you. I am so excited to hear that because that was our goal, right? Let's see how we can be more efficient with our spending, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next staff report is, Brad, are you on? This is our towing and panhandling update. And thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll make this easy for me. Jeff, you want to come on up? We'll go over panhandling first. And honestly, I would say just fire off questions if you have some. Jeff does have our final draft of the sign here for you to take a look at.
Mayor, City Council. Yeah, last meeting, decision was made to move forward with the panhandling signage. 10 locations in the city. We met with police this week. Streets developed this concept drawing, of the actual sign. We'll do them in-house. You had approved $1,800 worth of signage at those 10 locations, so we're coming back to you and just letting you know that this is what we came up with. Wanted to let you take a look at it. There's still time to make changes if you would like, but this is where we're at now, so I'll take any questions that you might have.
Fellow council members, Madam Mayor, I think it looks great, good selection. We gave the chief absolute authority to pick the best type of sign so we don't argue about colors or anything. So I think it's great. Thank you.
You guys did a great job.
Is there, Mayor Kling, are there locations been identified yet?
There are 10 locations. We've identified them, and I wish I had the map right.
Okay. Can you share that with us at the next city council
We
meeting
have
then?
that map, so
Madam Mayor, just did that question, that what's the time window that we're looking at as far as these actually to be up and, or do we know yet?
once we get the go-ahead, it's just getting with streets to fabricate the signage, and the design's done, so should be a few weeks, a couple weeks.
Okay, and the go-ahead is,
Actually, I think we're authorized to move forward. I
Right.
think the only thing would have been, does the council, because evidently we don't have those locations here tonight, is that correct?
We do not.
We do not, okay. So do you want to approve the locations, or I know it's going to be based on, who's weighing in? Brad,
We gave discretion to the police.
Right.
yes.
right?
I
So
agree.
you're okay just to go ahead and move forward?
I'm just wondering
Okay.
how soon it was gonna, yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
informative is all I was looking for.
And this is a question for the council. Is it okay if we were to email it at this point, since it was really at our discretion as to where to put the signs on? Wait 2 weeks to find out, we'll get it to you.
Okay by me.
Before you get home.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, I'll look.
Perfect, so you have the authorization to move forward, just email out the sign locations, and we appreciate the work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My last comment on that was, again, and I love this interdivisional work, and our folks working with his folks have done just a fantastic job. It was seamless and quick, other than even we argued over color a little bit, so. The last issue is the issue of towing, and I'm not exactly sure what you wanted an update. I believe it was Councilman Haverfield, only because I wasn't here 2 weeks ago. So if
Okay.
Lieutenant Ramirez is here and can assist with any comment if you wish.
I think we got the information that we were looking for. It was just more of an awareness going forward on the process. And we got that at the last meeting that we had, so I'm fine.
Okay, if you're good with it, then we'll, all right, thanks.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And thank you. Okay, so that concludes our staff communications, and we're going to move on to unfinished business. And so we have just a couple of items here, and we'll start, Jeff, do you have, whoever's on, I've got, this is the VRT Grant North Neighborhood Recipient Agreement.
Mayor, City Council, this is, there are 3 items on the agenda tonight from a grant that we received several years ago in partnership with Valley Regional Transit. And so tonight, we're presenting 3 items. The first is a subrecipient agreement between the City of Nampa and Valley Regional Transit. And Rhonda Jalbert is here from VRT. If you have any questions, she's been a great partner on these projects, and other projects from the VRT FTA funding, for instance, are in front of the Nampa High School. That whole project was funded through this grant program. So we have several other projects underway, and this is a subrecipient agreement for the North Nampa Neighborhood Multimodal Project, which is in our North Nampa neighborhood, which we want to, of course, focus on as far as infrastructure, and this was an opportunity to do that. Subrecipient agreement is attached, and then the other 2 are professional services agreement for not only the North Nampa Multimodal Project, which is beginning the design process for that, but also for the second project there, which is the Midland Blaine Hawk pedestrian signal, and then the Oahe Elementary pedestrian signal. So just to give you a quick summary of these projects, there's going to be a Hawk pedestrian signal on Midland in front of West Junior High, and toward, it can be used to go to West Park. And then at Oahe Elementary, there's going to be a rapid flashing beacon crossing for safety for the school kids there, and also some bike facilities. The North Nampa neighborhood is going to be pedestrian ramps, which we need in that area, bike facilities, and then a crossing on the rapid flashing crossing on the Indian Creek pathway. With that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Mayor, I have a question. Jeff, thanks. On the first project on the North Nampa neighborhood, when it says the city is responsible for any overages, have we had as far as an estimate of what the cost would be for that project? Any bids or anything of that sort?
Yeah, Councilman Brenner, we anticipate that with this grant fund, so when we get into design, we're pretty conservative. Looking at the numbers, so by the time we get to construction, our estimate is within our allotted budget. If it was to be over, we would trim back the scope of the project.
So the $590,000 that I'm seeing, that is what we feel like would be the top end.
Yeah, we would stay within that 590.
Okay, so we shouldn't have any overages past that. Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions? So with that, I think we'll go ahead and do a vote on this item before we proceed. And so I would stand for a motion if the council is so inclined.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, then our next item, which is the Paragon Professional Services Authorization with the North Neighborhood Improvements.
So that is the design that I referenced for the subrecipient agreement, which we need with VRT. So that's proceeding with the design for that project.
Are there any other questions? And I
Madam
would-
Mayor,
Thank you.
fellow council members, I move we authorize the Mayor and Public Works Director to sign the task order for professional services between the City of Nampa and Paragon Consulting as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
And Skog?
Yes.
And the next item is the Paragon Professional Services Authorization for the Midland Blaine Hawk.
Correct, this is to start the design on the Midland Hawk there at West Junior High and the West Park.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Who was the second?
I beat Sandy this time.
Bruner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Rhonda, thank you for being here. And did you get your document? Okay, perfect. That way you don't have to stay, but thank you for being here. So pending ordinances are obviously, they're on the agenda, but they're waiting supporting documentation. So we do have a few minutes, and I think we'll move on to our new business item. 6.1, this is an action item, and this is a discussion concerning the adopted facility plan and Harriman Report Parallel Path, and consider authorizing the mayor to sign a letter to Ron Harriman. Mark, are you going to kick us off on this discussion this evening?
You bet, Mayor. Let me go ahead and kind of give you why this is before you. And it originated with staff as a way of trying to bring forward kind of, at least staff's analysis, and we think that at least some of the council members are tracking with this. There was a time when, back in July, when we were discussing as a council, you discussed the Harriman Report, and you asked staff to vet the Harriman Report and its potential alternatives for wastewater treatment in the same fashion that we did with the 40-some other alternatives. I think staff has kind of gotten to the point where we feel like we've got an answer for you, and that answer is embodied in this letter. But because it was a public decision to go forward with an analysis of the Harriman Report, I, as attorney, feel like it needs to be a public decision. You need to make a decision now based on whether you're going to go forward on the Harriman Report or not. And so I think your options are to, well, and I guess to that end, I should say, because there's been public interest in this, because I think each of us have expressed respect for the amount of work that went into Mr. Harriman's report, because he has been in touch with IDEQ, we just thought a public response to it was appropriate. There's also been media interest in what the city was going to do with the Harriman Report and the potential option there. To give you a 30,000-foot view of the letter, really the concerns expressed there are, I think from staff's standpoint, we've gathered enough information that we can make a decision on this. What we've determined is that in order to implement the Harriman Report, there would be legal battles, and that imposes risk. Those legal battles look like, at this point, that they would be questionable at best, tough to win on some of the regulatory fights that would have to be undertaken to implement that. There's a cost to those battles, and perhaps most problematic, there's a delay. We can't get to answers on those legal challenges within the next 5 years, and those are critical years for construction of the currently adopted facility plan, and again, this is all outlined in the letter. We also have questions ultimately about, the staff does, about whether or not the savings can be realized, and much of that has to do with putting access to state revolving funds at risk. And again, that's outlined in more detail in the letter. So I think the question for council is, are you satisfied with the information that's been provided, primarily in the form of a letter regarding, the viability of the Harriman Report recommendations as an alternative to the adopted facility plan? If you're not satisfied that we have enough information, then instruct staff what information is missing, and we'll go about obtaining that for you. If you are satisfied that it's time to make a decision on whether to pursue the Harriman Report or stick with the facility plan, then you can adopt the letter as a statement of council. That's really what's being asked of you. If you don't like the letter, but you still want to make that decision, then you can tell me how you want to change the letter.
Madam Mayor, if I may, thank you, Mark. Let me just comment. I'm going to be moving that we move ahead as far as on the facility plan. But let me just state, and we said extra mile folks in this community. And Mr. Harriman is an extra mile person. And we have two other people out here too. They don't always agree with each other, but Mr. Osborne and Mr. Olmsted. The time and the energy and hours they do for research and helping us in this city and watching the taxpayer dollars. I want to thank you so very, very much. And if Ron happens to be listening, please, thank you very much. I wish I was a rich man. I think I'm a fighter. I know that some of these gentlemen are totally fighters. And if I had a lot of money, because I will say right here, DEQ and EPA are at fault here. There's mistakes. And I think it's proven. But as far as to gamble with the citizens' money, I'm not willing to do that. If it was my own money, if I had it, I probably would. But, so I think we need to move ahead, and that's how I'll be voting.
Thank you. Was that a motion?
I will move. Yes.
I'll second the motion to continue the conversation.
Okay. So just for clarity on the motion is to authorize the mayor, which obviously it's with the support of the council, based on a vote, to sign this letter. So is that the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's your second? Okay. And then we move to discussion. Who would like to go next?
Well, since I seconded the motion, I'll go ahead and just concur with Councilman Bruner's comments. I think the due diligence aspect of vetting this other option out was important. The time spent by Mr. Harriman obviously was appreciated, and it was insightful. But again, I think the risk, especially to the potential loss of the state revolving fund interest with those bonds that they're giving us is too much to me to risk. The delay to for the project, I think, is something that's a weighing factor on me, and then the cost associated with it without there being the true, at the end of that rainbow, that there might be something. It might be that there's nothing there for us. So I will concur that I think we just need to move forward with the facility plan as drafted and the reuse as described in that, so.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Compadre, are you first or me?
Go ahead.
Okay. Mayor, when we started this back in 2018, when we first took office, this is something that has already been discussed prior to our election. However, one thing that I have to tell you is that it took 3 men who don't know anything about mandates by EPA and IDEQ to come and find loopholes was what mandated by us by the federal government. And the path the city of Nampa was taking is pursuant to those mandates, and I understand that, and I agree to that. However, these answers, or these questions that Ron Harriman and Hubert Osborne and Larry Olmsted, those questions have not been answered or ramified yet. So I'm really concerned that if we should continue our forward march on this issue of wastewater compliance. I understand that. But I also believe that there are loopholes that haven't been figured out yet. So if it takes 3 men who are retired and delve into this and find information that's not ever been cleared up yet, and for us to ignore that, to me, I think we're doing wrong. But I understand that this is a parallel situation and we must follow. So that's my opinion, and I think we need to, we all understand that, and I think we all concur with that. So I would agree to go forward, but I also agree by the time that this is finished that we all should have all the answers that they have brought up answered. Or should I say all the questions that they have brought up answered. Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Madam Mayor. Fellow council members, I'm not going to vote in favor of the letter, but I understand the majority of you will, and I respect that. We did not get an expert legal opinion from Holland and Hart, experts in water law, to see if we did have litigation options where we could win. We haven't, we got a free report from them, but we didn't have them do the actual research. I would like to explore that, up to $50,000 in legal fees if necessary. But still, it's just, the thorn in my side is that we're spending $40 to $60 million on temperature and phosphorus that is not going to improve the fish life of any fish in that creek. It's not going to improve the ecosystem one bit. And talking to DEQ, and they will say that. It's not going to improve anything. That's a lot of money to spend just to meet some unfunded federal mandate. And we have no choice but to go forward with the project. And for all the work we've done, staff, this mayor, this council, past mayors, past councils, really all we're doing is doing the bidding of the federal government on an unfunded mandate. I'm disgusted by that, but that's what we have to do.
Councilman
Mayor,
Woven.
thank you. I really don't feel that there's much more that I can add than what my fellow council members have so eloquently stated. But I do publicly, again, I want to state my appreciation and admiration to Mr. Harriman, Mr. Olmsted, and Mr. Osborne for their commitment and dedication for watching out for our community and our citizens. It is kind of frustrating to know when these federal agencies have planted their heels, they only go in further, and we feel helpless to fight them or to get them to revisit an area of where they've made decision. We've got timelines, we've got deadlines that we do have to meet, and importantly, we also have a community that did overwhelmingly vote that we would move ahead with the bond. I did suggest a workshop to bring certain entities together so that we could become much more educated on options that were out there, including our water reuse, et cetera. Maybe that's something we can still do at a later time, because I believe that there are some things to still explore. And talking to Mr. Harriman, that he also said that his intention was to continue to move forward. So I do appreciate that at the same time. But this is a really tough decision to make, because we would like to be able to stand up against these entities and have them review and reconsider what they've decided. But also as council, we do have to move ahead in a responsible fashion.
I think everyone except for Councilman Hogaboam, do you have any comments? You're not required.
I want to thank the three gentlemen, Harriman, Osborne, Olmsted, for their work. Thank fellow council members. I know Councilman Skog and Rodriguez early on, and as well as Mayor Kling, have all devoted energies to trying to find a more favorable outcome. Just want to briefly say that the Clean Water Act, which was passed in 1972, it's where the EPA derives much of its authority. That when it was passed, it says that it's congressional policy to recognize, preserve, and protect the primary responsibilities and rights of states to prevent, reduce, and eliminate pollution, and to consult with the administrator in the exercise of his authority under this act. My charge would be to our congressional delegation would be to help mitigate the continued growth of the administrative, really the fourth branch of government and its rulemaking authority. I'd admonish Congressman Labrador, Simpson, and our two senators, Crapo and Risch, to continue to advocate on behalf of Idaho to make sure that we can find common sense solutions that meet our needs. It is frustrating when you talk about a very marginal improvement in water temperature for the beneficial uses. The costs are quite high, and it's very difficult in what was promised during the legislation that there'd be cooperative federalism with local entities. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. It felt like you have to beg for a meeting, and this sort of relationship between cities, counties, states, and the federal government is just something that's frustrating to the citizens, which I understand, and it's frustrating to us as council. It feels like you really literally have to beg the federal government just to sit down and meet with us. As Councilman Brunner said, I'd probably maybe risk my own money if I was the only person assuming liability in fighting this, but we already have a permit with the EPA that we have to comply with, and I understand that any legal route would not just be time-consuming, it would also be costly. But the time-consuming aspect means the project would cost more. We would jeopardize the low interest rate. And I know that people of our city voted 80% of the, plus percent of the people voted, was it 70? 87, yeah. Almost 90% of the people, which is unheard of. And I know a lot of the people voted yes. They're not happy about what they're voting yes for, but felt that it was the best act of stewardship considering the circumstances that we're in. So I support the signing of this letter and also, again, applaud the efforts of Ron Harriman, who pushed us to contemplate all possible scenarios. So that's all.
I appreciate Councilman Hogaboam mentioning the citizen vote, because that's the last thing I wanted to just mention. We had almost 87% of our public vote for us to go use the state revolving loan to fund our future upgrades. Not all of the cost of this project is related to compliance. And we spent 9 years working on a process, and what our collective group decided over 9 years was that reuse of the water was the best stewardship that we should do for our community. And I have to say, I support the reuse direction for our community, because we have a Treasure Valley that's going to double in size in the next 20 to 40 years, and water is a very valuable commodity. For us to put 11 million gallons of water down a creek every day and not retain that water in our community, to me, isn't wisdom. I think that we need to be thinking of our next generation, and we need to reuse our water. And so the intent is that we go after a reuse permit, and that's what a tremendous amount of research went into that, which was go after a reuse permit. That's what we communicated to the citizens of Nampa. And with an 87% vote to go that direction, I personally would feel very disingenuous if we didn't do it. We lost the reuse, our state revolving loan at 1.68%, and it cost our citizens what they voted and asked us not to do. So I think it's wisdom for us to fulfill what our citizens ask us to do, and that is to secure that loan and not to compromise it. So that said, is there any further discussion or comment?
Mayor Kling, again, just on the water reuse aspect alone, the return on the investment put back into the plant of almost $22 million is significant. The economic development potential for the city is estimated at another $800,000 per year. There is a return on the investment in an aging infrastructure that's out there that needs to be upgraded anyway. So I think what we're doing is appropriate. The one statement in this letter, and I hope that this letter is made, I think the paper's here.
And it is in the packet, it's
Okay.
public. Mhm.
But as noted above, the outcome of legal contest is uncertain at best. That's the thing that caught my attention the most, and the consequences of legal loss is catastrophic. And that would go along with losing the potential for the lower interest rate through the state revolving fund. I think it's imperative that we move in the right path, and I think that the motion made and seconded, I think, is the right path as far as in my determination.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling. I also agree with what Councilman Haverfield also said. However, on the same term, I'm thinking that if we went to legal analysts and attorneys, like Councilman Skog said, and spent $50,000 to look at these loopholes and figure out a direction, they would be able to say whether we would lose or not. Right now, we're not going there, and I agree with Councilman Skog. We should be looking at everything we can do, our due diligence for the community, even though it looks like an uphill battle. I understand that, Mayor, and I think, fellow councilmen, it's going to be a tough one for us. But I want to make sure that we are just covered. So, thank you.
I guess final, Madam Mayor, that was an executive session, so I'm not sure what can be said, and I'm not going to use even the law firm's name, even though it has been used previously. But anyone who would have read through that, even though they were willing to take this case on and research it further, it was not a real optimistic as far as in my evaluation of what they were telling us. They did not give us a high high percentages of success on this. So that affected how I feel about it and how I'm voting tonight also.
That said, are we ready for roll call? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
No.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okay, so it is 10 after 7, and at 7 o'clock is when we move into our public hearings. And so we will come back to finish the new business following 2 public hearings that we have. And our first public hearing this evening is annexation and zoning to a RA suburban residential at 908 North Middleton Road. This is a 2-acre or 120,000 square foot portion of the west half of the southwest quarter of Section 17, T3N R2W BM for Rodney Rudder for connection to city sewer. Is the applicant present this evening? So not seeing the applicant, staff report. Norm?
Yes, the applicant, excuse me, is requested annexation and zoning of this rural residential parcel. He'd like to see it zoned RA. The reason is to connect to the city sewer system. The parcel is contiguous to the city limits on its northeast corner, as you can see on the overhead. Again, he is seeking the RA zone, and the conditions that have been recommended by engineering staff is the existing septic system would need to be abandoned in accordance with the guidelines of the Southwest Health District. There would be required a right-of-way dedication on Middleton Road, on their side of the road, as well as when, if any future development occurs on this parcel, or redevelopment, that the frontage improvements would be made as listed. And with those conditions, the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this request for annexation and zoning for connection to the city sewer.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing. There was no one signed up to testify in support or against this. Is there anyone here that intended to testify that did not get signed up? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close our public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
We don't have a
There was no second.
I
so-
had a question for Norm.
You wanna do it?
Should I close public hearing and then ask him, or ask before we
I
close
think
public hearing?
we can still ask him the
I'll
question.
pull my motion so you can.
Okay, so pull it. So we'll go ahead and ask.
There's been discussion about impact fees. You mentioned that one of the conditions of approval would mean the improvements would be made if the development, if there's further build-out. Is that correct?
Right.
This was just more a clarifying question, is this would be sort of grandfathered then into any future decision we make on impact fees. So that build-out might occur years from now, unlikely, but they wouldn't pay the impact fees that would then fund what we're talking about, is using money in targeting projects, but they would have to then make the improvements on the frontage, which is something that we're looking to move away from, possibly. Or Tom looks like he's eager to answer the question. All right.
Council Hagerboom. Yeah, so there, in the new impact fee proposal, which we're talking about, right-of-way will still be dedicated, so that's still the case, option A or B here. But the higher impact fee would be paid and not do the road frontage. So what we're proposing to do is a transition period, and we've been talking with the developers about this, that let's say the city council adopts the new impact fee ordinance in the beginning of January. There's a time frame where things are grandfathered in, and then there's a cutoff date. And so we've been working with the building and department and the developers and the impact fee committee on that.
Okay. So the conditions of approval wouldn't be grandfathered in beyond that grandfathered date of things that are built out within the time frame? You understand what I mean?
That's correct. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.
Are there any further questions? Sorry, missed those earlier. Okay, so now I would stand for a motion to close our public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, council discussion.
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to allow the annexation and zoning to RA as requested by the applicant, meeting the recommended conditions of approval by staff.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
You normally don't vote when the applicants are not here, but I'll take a stab and say yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
I'm going to state the same thing with Rodriguez, but because the applicant brought forth and he wanted to do this, I will go ahead and say yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, our next public hearing is annexation and zoning to RS, which is single-family residential at 7,000 square foot a lot for Carriage Hill West subdivision, east of Midway Road between West Iowa and Lake Lowell Avenue. This is a 122.38 acre portion of the northwest quarter of Section 31, T3N, R2W, BM 3 for 368 single-family residential lots or 3.01 lots per gross acre. This is for Engineering Solutions, representing Toll Idaho 1 LLC. Is the applicant present this evening? Thank you for stating your name and who you're representing. Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm Becky McKay, Engineering Solutions, business address 1029 North Rosario in Meridian. I'm representing Toll Brothers on this application that's before you. The project that's before you is approximately 122.38 acres of land. It's currently zoned agricultural within Canyon County. We are requesting an RS7 zoning designation on the property, which is consistent with your comprehensive plan, which has this designated as a low-density residential area. We have 368 single-family lots, 6 common driveways, and 29 open space lots. The property, as you can see, is located just south of Lake Lowell and east of Midway and north of Iowa. The property is contiguous to Carriage Hill North, which that was a development that I brought through for Coleman Homes. And then Toll Brothers purchased that property. We came before you with Carriage Hollows, which is the little white area that you see right here. We brought that through as a separate preliminary plat. The property borders the Robinson Canal there on that northeast section, and then we have the Thacker Lateral that traverses the property. You guys have a gravel pit that is on our northern boundary that fronts there on Lake Lowell. It's my understanding that it's in the process of reclamation, and over time, as that is reclaimed, then the plan is at some point it will become like a city park. That's the long-range plan according to Mr. Badger. The lots in the Carriage Hill project range from 7,000 to 20,000 square feet. We have an average lot size of about 9,200 square feet. If we eliminate the top 20%, the bottom 20% of our lot sizes and do the average, we're at about 8,695 square feet. As I indicated, the density is 3.01 dwelling units per acre. When I did this conceptual plan, one of the things that we looked at was obviously the traffic and how that would work in this project. So we basically designed a continuous collector that comes from Lake Lowell and wraps all the way through the project over to Midway. Staff also asked us to incorporate an access down to Iowa, which we did revise our preliminary plat and add that after the Plan and Zoning Commission hearing. Our central amenities, so this is all landscaped. We'll have detached
attached sidewalks throughout the entire project. We have 20-plus feet of landscaping. We've enlarged the landscaping here adjacent to this out parcel. I've met with Belinda McBurney and this property owner here, Mr., I can't say his name, Poultry or something like that. We did go out to their properties. We met with them after the Plan Zoning Commission meeting, looked at the orientation of their homes, their patios. We did make a slight revision for Mrs. McBurney. She asked that we put landscaping here. And we had lots backing up to her, and she wanted landscaping and then the road here, since staff has asked us to stub utilities to her property. We have a cul-de-sac stubbed here, so we can bring utilities and services to that out parcel. And one of the changes that the Planning and Zoning Commission made that deviated from staff's recommendation was access to Beaverton. Beaverton comes off of Iowa. That's a county subdivision, so there are no utilities in Beaverton. It's a rural roadway. Staff had asked us to provide access out to Beaverton. Based on the testimony submitted from the Beaverton residents, the Plan and Zoning Commission basically in their motion asked that we not connect to Beaverton. From my planning experience, we typically, if we can, try not to place any undue burden on existing streets, especially if we have lower density that's adjoining us. Since we do have our own vehicular outlet to Iowa, I believe the Beaverton access or interconnection would be a duplicate. So I was in agreement with the Plan and Zoning Commission's motion. As far as utilities out here, we have a 12-inch water main that is at the intersection of Iowa and Beaverton. We'll extend that to the west. We will be required to extend a 12-inch water main up Midway to the north, and then we'll be connecting the 12-inch water main that's in Lake Lowell, and this whole section will then be looped together. So as far as your water system is concerned, the staff has indicated there's adequate service for this property to provide fire flow and the needs of this development. Sewer will be provided from the ore drain. We submitted information to the staff. They did evaluate it. So there is an 8-inch sewer line that is at Carriage Hill North. Then we have a 10-inch line that we extended to the north into the ore drain trunk. And due to the excessive slope on that sewer line, it has the capacity to handle the 368 lots that are proposed within this development. We will be required to dedicate additional right-of-way along Lake Lowell and Midway, which are arterials. We will be building curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Iowa is designated as a collector roadway. It will require widening, additional right-of-way and curb, gutter, and sidewalk. In your pathway plan, Midway Road, I believe, is indicated for a 10-foot pathway. We do show that on our preliminary plat, so it can accommodate both bikes and pedestrians in the future. A traffic study was done on this project by Thompson Engineers, evaluated by your staff. At build-out, this project will generate approximately 3,700 vehicle trips per day. That also includes the Carriage Hollows, the 24 lots that we had in that development. Distribution of that traffic will be about 45% northbound, 10% southbound, and 45% eastbound. All intersections that were studied within this area and impacted by our development will continue to operate at an acceptable level of service and within your operational thresholds. We will be required to make some improvements as far as turn lanes at Lake Lowell, the entrance into the development. Concerning pressurized irrigation, there is pressurized irrigation out here, but according to staff, there is a new regional pump station that will need to be constructed. It's my understanding that Stella Point is running ahead of us, so staff has indicated that the regional pump station will be within Stella Point, and then that we will extend, I believe, 12-inch pressure irrigation mains within the arterials and collectors and into our development. Initially, we had proposed that Robinson lateral that wraps around here, and then the Thacker lateral that comes and traverses through the subdivision would remain open. After multiple meetings with the Boise Project Board of Control, they have determined that based on ditch safety and concerns about people dumping their grass clippings into the waterway, that they think it is in their best interest that those facilities be piped. So we are basically forming kind of a private-public partnership with them. We will be providing all the materials, the pipes, and this winter, the Boise Project Board of Control will have their staff install the pipe and construct the boxes for both facilities. So we will not have any open ditches within the project as initially proposed. We've done this with Nampa Meridian Irrigation District in the past on multiple projects where we have what we call a high bank, like with the Reidenbach Canal. They consider the Robinson a high bank, which their concerns typically are if there's a gopher hole, they could have basically leakage, which then could cause liability and damage to the home. So by putting that in pipe, that'll be concrete pipe, we've eliminated any of that water hazard in the future for those homeowners or for the Boise Project Board of Control. As far as open space in this project, we have 15.96 acres of open space, which is 13% of the site. Your ordinance does not require a minimum open space, but we've incorporated quite a bit of open space and landscaping. We have a central common area that's proposed right here. That will have, that consists of 2.28 acres. So we have a nice big common area. We'll have a swimming pool, changing rooms, play equipment, picnic gazebo, pathways. We have linkages that, pedestrian linkages that flow out to the development. We have other pocket parks within the project, like here and over in this area. Typically, Coleman Homes, Toll Brothers, within those pocket parks, they have other, what we call smaller amenities that they will incorporate for the enjoyment of these residents. So we feel that, you know, basic with the pathways and the amenity package, with the 368 lots, we're going to be providing a really great neighborhood that will be a nice addition to the city of Nampa. We want it to be consistent with Carriage Hill North in the quality of those homes and the livability and sustainability of the neighborhood. And we think we've got a really great project. Like I said, we're in agreement with staff's conditions of approval, with the exception of that Beaverton connection, which the Plan Zoning Commission eliminated. May I answer any questions?
Mayor Kling. Excuse me, Randy. Becky, did you say you were not in agreement with the connection to Beaverton, or that you were?
I did not initially show a connection to Beaverton. The Planning and Zoning Commission, in their determination, they agreed that a Beaverton connection should not be made based on the comments of the Beaverton residents. So I agreed with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I see.
Your staff had a condition that indicated we would connect to Beaverton.
Yes, I wanted to clarify that. All right, thank you.
So I am in agreement
Okay.
with the neighbors and with the Plan and Zoning Commission.
Okay, good, thank you.
Councilman Haverfield?
Becky, the Meadowbrook subdivision that is to the east of Beaverton there, that is still going to be in the county then?
Yes, I believe that is.
So the city would basically be wrapping around Meadowbrook and that little section right here will still be county?
Yes, and I have spoken with this gentleman a couple of times. I believe he has 7.5 acres, and he's contemplating either selling or developing his property. I guess he's designated mixed use.
So my question, as far as on Beaverton, you're not planning on any improvements on Beaverton, or are you looking at some improvements on Beaverton to, on your half of that road section?
We have proposed a 15-foot landscape, separate landscape lot to buffer these lots, so we don't have double fronting lots. As far as installing curb and gutter and sidewalk on our side, I am not sure, the Planning and Zoning Commission did not clarify that. They just said no connection to Beaverton. I guess that's a question for your Public Works Director. We
Okay.
would abut the west side of Beaverton, and there is, I believe, no curb, gutter, or sidewalk.
Right, it's a rural section now, and I know Meadowbrook has separate individual, 2 well lots and individual sewers. So will Beaverton, there won't be any utilities placed in your half of Beaverton then, as far as extensions that they could eventually tap into? It would have to come off of Lake Lowell,
It would come off of Iowa.
not Lake Lowell, Iowa, I mean,
There's water at Iowa, yes.
okay. So I'll ask that question of staff then, as far as on the improvements of Beaverton then.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any further questions? Nope. Thank you. Norm?
You can see the limits of the property on the overhead. This acreage is contiguous to the city on the south, on the north and east, and a little bit on the southeast there at a point. So it meets the criteria in terms of connectivity to the city to be annexed. And the zoning that is being proposed, the RS7 zone, conforms with the comprehensive plan for low-density residential land use, and the ultimate density that would be built there conforms with the comp plan. You have in the staff report the findings that were established by the council, or commission. I won't go through those, but the same findings are recommended should the council consider to approve this annexation and zoning. The Planning Commission, at their meeting on September 25th, did recommend approval of the annexation and zoning to you. They also approved the preliminary plat as has been described by the applicant. And there was some discussion at one point with concerning Carriage Hill representatives regarding the name of this project as Carriage Hill West. And now we have Carriage Hill North and the original Carriage Hill. And there was some concern expressed over the use of the name Carriage Hill. But they are different because they're adding the north to it and the west to it. So it's not an issue to the city that we feel that we're involved with in any way. The county verifies that they're agreeable with the plat name when they review and approve the plats. And if there is an issue, that would be raised by the county and would be discussed with them at that point with possible change. But historically, they didn't oppose the north, Carriage Hill North, so we don't imagine they would oppose Carriage Hill West as far as the county expressing that as a need. That's all that I have. Any questions?
Mayor Kling, Norm, is it consistent with staff policy when a road section is abutted by a new development, that if there isn't a cross-access onto that, that any improvements are not made, like on Beaverton in this case?
That's more of an engineering policy in this case, and I guess I would let our Public Works Director indicate.
Answer that, okay.
Mayor, Council Applefield. So, there's actually, there was a bit of a trade-off there. Daniel had asked for to have a connection over here, but there wasn't one over here in the original proposal, so it was instead of being able to access Iowa through here, it's over on this spot now, which still gives us 3 points of access. In this subdivision, you have one up here, and one over here. And this route, you can't really see it, but this route loops around through here, and there's a second point on this subdivision that comes out on Iowa. So there's 2 points of access there. We didn't feel like there was any need to do any improvements there since it wasn't being tied into.
That was my question. Is that a consistent staff policy where you're not providing an access and required improvements on an existing road section to not have any improvements at all required?
Yeah, we've done that before on other roads, like Willow Lane, it comes to mind, on Middleton Road, so yeah.
Okay. It seems, it seems correct, but then again, this is the time to catch those improvements by that developer. Nothing was said by the Planning and Zoning Commission or by the residents of the Meadowbrook subdivision then about that?
No, they just, Daniel informed me that the residents at the subdivision over here, for Beaverton, did not want the connection, so that was and we don't see the need for it, so we're good with that.
Yeah, well, our first home was in that subdivision, so I know it well. And I know that they wouldn't want to have access to it, and the fact that it's still in the county, because they all have individual sewer systems on the lots, they're larger lots, so makes sense. But again, that section of Beaverton, now would be the time to capture improvements to it. If, like I say, that was the question, if there's no access, no improvements are required, so it's basically backing up to an existing road section, so.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, Norm, question for you, if I may. So I just need some clarification from what Councilman Haverfield is reporting. So Beaverton and whatever subdivision that is, I know it was named, so that is in the county.
That's right.
So clarify for me then, is that an enclave then, going to be what we would refer to as an enclave area then, that subdivision?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the larger map. It appears.
I'm not as far as
Appears that it could be.
to the east. Okay, and do we know approximately how many acres then, as far as is going east from Beaverton Road, that is county? I know you said you had to refer to a map. I'm catching you here. Okay. I'm just always concerned with sprawl, and this is a wonderful, subdivision and development, but that we're sprawling beyond an area that is not in the city limits.
In your packet,
Is it there where I should see it?
if you were to look on page 289 of your packet,
Okay.
you'll see the area in blue is this development. There's areas of white below it that identify which is still in the county. And that subdivision is that odd-shaped section to the east of this development. So there's quite a bit of city property there connected, that this is being connected to. I don't think it's an overreach. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So yes, the annexation of this does, it appear, does enclave the white areas that are remaining here.
Okay, thanks, Norm.
Are there any other further questions for Norm? Okay, so this is a public hearing, and we do not have anyone signed up in support of. We do have 2 people signed up in opposition to. So we'll start with opposition. The first person we have signed up is Chris, I believe it's Walker. Is that correct? Chris, you have 3 minutes to speak, and thank you for sharing your name again and your address. Thank you.
As of now, I'm kind of opposed to it. We do need a fire station out in that area.
Awesome. Go ahead and give us your address.
Chris
Thank you.
Walker, 11710 West Cross Slope Way. Yeah, I'm opposed to it right now. We do need a fire station out in that area. The more houses it's going to be limited on this response time and everything out there. And Middleton Road should be fixed before any more homes are put in out that way. it can take you somewhere 45 minutes to get down Middleton Road at certain parts of the day. It is just bumper to bumper with the stop signs. More and more traffic is just gonna make it a lot longer drive for everybody that lives out at that end. And I don't know what as the crime rate's going up in the area out there with everybody going through neighborhoods at night, I don't know what the police force is like, if they've got enough people, they need to hire more to accommodate. I mean, you got 3 projects, Hayden Homes, CBH, and now this one. You got probably 700 more homes that are going in, plus who knows how much more. And I think maybe that needs to be looked at before we approve any more houses to be built in the area out there. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. So Richard Thompson. Richard, thank you for restating your address, and even though you've written it down.
My name is Richard Thompson. My address is 11721 West Cross Slope Way. And by the way, what I'm about to say, you might think we checked with one another. We live on the same street, but we have some common themes. Context matters. The parameters of a study often predetermine the answers you receive. The traffic study that was given and starts on page 318 in your packet only focuses on adjacent roadways to the plan, and I think that's something that's important to note. If you'll notice on page 320, all the intersections that are studied are adjacent to the particular plan. And so it doesn't focus on the broader traffic patterns. And so in particular, if 45% of the traffic goes north, we're going to be looking at things such as the congestion north on Middleton. So the Middleton-Karcher interchange, for instance, which typically when we're talking about rush hour, typically backs up close to at least a half a mile or so in that respect. 45% goes to the east, which is 12th Street Avenue or whatever you call it, in that respect. And so that needs to be considered as well, especially given the fact also that when you're looking at the Middleton Road corridor as well, there are, I think, at least 4 or 5 subdivisions that are in development even now ahead of this one. So when you consider then the number of trips that are going to be added, we're really talking about, probably, my estimate would be probably 500 to 600 vehicles, during rush hour in that respect. Now, I realize, in fairness to the developer, that's not probably the developer's issue, but I think when I'm looking to you as our elected representatives, you all are the ones that are looking to the greater interest of us as citizens of the city of Nampa. And so the question becomes, what's the plan in terms of the traffic kinds of issues, because that's what we need to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended to speak either in favor of or opposing this particular? Thank you. I think you know the ropes, but feel free to share your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, I am Sharon Harris, and I live at 1612 South Miller Way, which is right in this neighborhood. And so it does concern me that we do have proposals for development, but we have not addressed the infrastructure in this area. And it is true, since we have purchased our home, which is a little over 6 years ago, not much has been done to Middleton, but the housing has exploded. When we look at the map provided in one of the studies, This area is a hot point for fire response, and we still don't have another fire station. My husband and I witnessed a road rage right across the street from us, and that has to do with traffic and being able to get around. And so, with safety, with fire, and just with the traffic issues on Middleton, I would really ask that we reconsider when we do development. Not that we can't, but when would it happen? So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? Okay, seeing none. I think in discussion, a question I have for you, Tom, is with the discussion regarding traffic, would you please share with us the timeline for improvements on Middleton Road?
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, so we do have some grants on Middleton Road, on some signals. So we recognize that Middleton is becoming congested, and we've been applying for grants. We have Middleton and Orchard signal. That's actually Nampa Highway District, and they're planning on putting that in even hopefully this summer. And then we have a Middleton and Smith. That's a safety grant application, and then Middleton and Lone Star. And I believe those are in fiscal year 20 and 21. So those are coming up, and we apply for those safety grants and have been awarded those. And we actually use our impact fee dollars to help match those dollars.
So Middleton and Orchard, and that's Highway District, did you say 1 or Canyon?
Highway District 1, Mayor.
Okay, so that's summer of 19. Smith, though, when we're talking, which one is 2020, 2021? Do you, I'm sorry, I'm catching you off guard.
Smith is 2020, and Lone Star Middleton is 2021 construction.
Is there any way to move those up? It's all about money. As I ask that question, I know that answer.
We're working on Middleton Smith.
Okay.
There's always a potential. These are LTAC grants. So what we've learned through the grant process is if you get the design going and you're actively getting things ready, sometimes they can move them up if there's funding available, savings in the overall program. So, yes.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, if I may, so we are having a widening then on Midway? Did I hear that correctly? Or just widened? I thought we talked about bike path and so on, or am I not hearing that correctly?
So Mayor, Council Bruner, in your packet, it says that the developer on these roadway frontages on the principal arterial, so Midway, Iowa, and Lake Lowell will donate the right-of-way. And right now, it says build the curb gutter sidewalk. That's our current policy. So it goes back to Councilor Agabum's question. What's the, as we move into this proposal on the new impact fee, those roadway frontage would not be built, but this developer could potentially pay a higher impact fee, which would go into the regional improvements that everyone's asking for. Right. So our impact fee, our strategy is to not build these road frontages that don't have conductivity and don't have the highest value, and then collect the money instead of having that built, and then go build intersections. So our plan is to build all the intersections up and relieve that congestion, and then come back and widen later.
And I guess what I'm getting at, so as far as if you're turning out of this subdivision, if you're turning left on Midway or turning left on Iowa, crossing traffic. So is there any type of a turn lane as far as going into those subdivisions where you can turn into a middle lane? Or are we just crossing traffic and when you're crossing the lane is what I'm saying?
Mayor, Council, no, so it will still be a two-lane road.
Just a 2-lane road and you're turning, so it's just more traffic that you're having to wait if you're trying to go across traffic going east on Iowa or going south on Midway.
On those two roads, you're correct. On the developer did mention that up on Lake Lowell, they will be putting a turn lane in front of their main entrance. So that's part of their requirement.
Okay, so that's for a turn lane if you're turning into the subdivision. Okay. And then with just one, and then I'll be quiet here. So then on Middleton Road, we're talking about, of course, the lights and so on, but we're not talking about anything as far as a widening of Middleton Road at this point in time.
No, Council Bruner, the funding's not there to do it.
Oh, I understand. I just wanted that clarification. Thanks.
Mayor? Yes. Thank you, Tom. Would you please clarify the Middleton Lone Star improvement? I didn't get that written down.
Yeah, Councilor Levi, the Middleton and Lone Star is a signal that was planned, it's a safety grant through LTAC, and the construction is planned for fiscal year '21.
Thank you.
So another question regarding, and I think it is Middleton, and it's going back to what Councilman Bruner mentioned. The turn lanes, when it's really difficult traffic, having that middle turn lane is very important. Does the width of the road accommodate the restriping to where we could get a turn lane in?
Probably not on, Mayor, probably not on Midway.
On Midway?
Possibly on Iowa. I haven't looked at that one yet. But, so as we go through and do our seal codes in our zones, we always look at that to see if we have enough road frontage to start adding in turn lanes where we have enough road frontage. I don't think that one has been developed enough yet. So I think the only turn lane that we're talking about at this point is that up on Lake Lowell. This is kind of right at the outskirts of the impact area now, so we're not, yet a lot of the traffic is going to be generated here going, like they mentioned, north and south, and it won't be coming more from the west, so the need may not be there yet.
I'm sitting here thinking about the timeline that it takes, because the impact fees that we're going to be accumulating to help do the road improvements are going to take place over a long period of time. It depends on how quickly that builds out. I guess the good news, the bad news is that with the different subdivisions that are in development, they're not gonna come overnight, right? They're gonna be built over time. And I don't know, what is the projected timeline for the full build out of this subdivision? I know that's a difficult question, but does the applicant have an idea of what they've projected their build out for the full subdivision to be?
Becky McKay, Engineering Solutions. Madam Mayor, to answer your questions, we show this as 6 phases within the project. Of course, that's always based on market conditions, so that 6 could turn into 8 if we see a slowdown. I think when they did the traffic study, they were looking at 2024, 2025 build out.
That's very
And
helpful.
So it's kind of an incremental, you're not gonna see 368 homes come on, boom, immediately. I mean, we've been working on Carriage Hill North now for, I think, about 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. That's helpful. Does council have any further questions? Okay, that being said, I guess because this is a public hearing, the applicant does have an opportunity to provide some closing remarks. Would you like to do so?
Madam Mayor, yes. As far as the traffic study is concerned, when the traffic engineers meet with your staff, and obviously based on input from Compass, as far as what intersections will be impacted by this development. Obviously, you can continue to go out and further and further and further, to infinity as far as where will these residents work, where did they go to, where do the kids go to school, but they obviously have to create some type of a model of which intersections to study. And so the intersections that were designated for study, Midway, Lake Lowell, Carriage Hill Way, Lake Lowell Avenue, Midway, Iowa. They studied Hunters Point in Iowa, Beaverton, Landau Way on Iowa, Whitechapel Way, Carriage Hill Way on Iowa. All of those intersections with the background were basically operating a level of service A or B. So they all looked really, really good. And then when we looked at the build-out, we were still within the operational or the acceptable thresholds. Now, as far as those long-range improvements, you know, we face this at every municipality that we go to. And it's kind of like, you know, you'd like to jump out ahead and build midway to 5 lanes and do all the intersection improvements, and so the traffic flows, but it just doesn't work that way from a budget perspective. And obviously, until the need is there, you know, we rebuild these intersections on an incremental basis. Obviously, your Public Works Director, you know, they have a designated plan of when these intersection improvements will take place. You know, we will be making improvements along our frontages based on the staff's comments, and that's what we show within our preliminary plat. Your impact fee schedule, you know, everybody's kind of evaluating, they need more funding. ACHD, for example, is asking for an increase in the registration fees. They also increase their impact fees. So, you know, the whole valley is looking at transportation because it's critical. It's critical to the residents, it's critical for the economic growth and for new businesses that we can obviously get the traffic around the valley in a manner in which we don't have road rage. But I think, you know, we have to look at the big picture and see what we can do incrementally and as a collective to obviously help the situation. And as I indicated, it's going to take place over time. As far as a new fire station, I mean, that's the first that's been brought up to me. Staff did not indicate that there was any need for a fire station. Obviously, you know, this property here, 7.5 acres, mixed use. They're trying to figure out exactly what type of use will be best on that property. They're kicking around the office. I mean, that parcel could definitely have the size to accommodate a 2-acre fire station. I think an issue was brought up with the name Carriage Hill. We are contiguous with Carriage Hill North. We have Carriage Hill Hollows and Carriage Hill West. Typically, if we have projects that are contiguous, then we can have a variation of the same name. We've got a really excellent project here that's before you with a great, you know, a great amenity package, great pathways. We worked long and hard to make sure that this would be a premier neighborhood for the city. And I guess I'm asking for your support because I really think that this is going to continue the high quality Coleman Toll Brothers tradition that we've established with Carriage Hill North. And it will build out incrementally, but it will benefit the city in the long run. And you guys probably need to take a look at those impact fees and revisit that as this growth continues to accelerate, because I know the prices are pushing people toward Nampa and Caldwell again, and we're just seeing it rocket. I'd like more moderation, but I guess, you know, we have to deal with it just like you do. We don't get to pick and choose on how fast these homes sell, but they're just going like hotcakes right now. So we try to do the best we can in our planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Becky?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, do you know what these homes would, what they would cost right now, if one was built out? What an
Sell for?
average
Sell for?
sell for, yes.
You talking the lots or the?
No, the home on the lot, 250 to 400?
250 to 400,000.
Okay.
What would the lots go for?
They're included in the price of the home,
Oh, okay.
so they don't sell to outside builders.
So Mayor, Becky, this is all one builder?
Yeah,
Okay.
Toll Brothers.
Okay. So you're not allowing any other contractors to come in on the lots, okay? Thanks.
Do you have an idea what your HOA dues are going to be?
Typically, we don't until we do the specific design of the amenities and, you know, get the amenities established. We do have our amenity package proposed within Phase 1, so the amenities will go in right up front. But it varies from project to project. We try to make it obviously affordable so that it isn't a deterrent to sales, and I would say it's probably going to be consistent with Carriage Hill North. You know, I did the redesign of it, and it had similar central common areas, amenities, pathways, and open space.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Okay, so this would conclude our public hearings, and I would stand for a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
I guess I'll start out again. Madam Mayor, I'm torn on this because this is a no-brainer for any other time. This is such an excellent development, at least what I'm hearing. The infrastructure, two-edged sword. I don't have an answer. I wish we had an answer, Tom, on that as far as where the streets could be done, and we had the money to do that before the subdivisions came about. But this is the type of subdivision that, I mean, Nampa, I personally, I can't speak for the other council people, with the type of subdivision that we want. I know you can't push too much when you're dealing with counties and so on and ITD, but boy, if we could just push and prioritize, if we're allowing this development to come in this area for the streets and for the traffic flow, for improvements to be moved into this area as quickly as possible, because people are wanting to be here and wanting to be in that part of town. So I'm torn, but I'm a private rights person, and as far as the sale of the property, I'm a little concerned too, of course, with the enclave. That's always been a concern of mine, but I'm going to go ahead and vote for approval of this development and the annexation and zoning change.
Is that a motion?
No, that's just discussion. You guys discuss with them.
We can discuss if you want to move in the.
Okay, well, if somebody wants a second, I will make the motion and we approve as stated.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, now discussion. Any further discussion?
I appreciate the concerns, Mayor. From the public, it is a concern that is a hot spot for fire response time, and hopefully with the impact fee schedule, we can get 2 fire stations. That's one of the things we're contemplating. And so I know patience is difficult, but the price of these homes with full build-out, 368 homes, if my financial impact analysis is sort of off, Vicki can correct me, if roughly, $2,000 to $3,000 a home, full build-out, that'll be over $1 million a year in annual revenue with full build-out of this, which helps pay. It's just one of those challenges of getting the money to fund the infrastructure, and it's kind of a cat and mouse game, and we're trying to do the best we can. But I just want to say I do take to heart the comments from the public. And Tom's doing a great job in identifying and slating projects on the street, so it's kind of a catch-up game. I just admit that that's where we're at, and we're hoping to do a better job maybe over the next 10 years with the growth and trying to steward it better. But I will support this as well, because it's property rights, and also the annexation is we're not getting any revenue off county land right now, and we already are servicing, taxpayers are paying for the streets around it, and while we can debate whether the streets should be improved, we're not building new streets to go outward to accommodate sprawl. This is actually approving development that's within sort of the existing grid, albeit it is a critical service area for fire, and we're going to catch up on that. So I will be supporting it.
As a follow-up to that, I think I will mention that we do have the ground for the fire station. It is slated to meet the needs for this area. Right now, what we're lacking, and we could maybe get close to paying for the fire station. The city budget right now does not accommodate to hiring all the staff to man the fire station. So it's absolutely in our plan. And we are looking at, as we work on our strategic plan, we're working on a long-term funding plan, which we'll be able to pretty shortly figure out when we could forecast out just the personnel. So impact fees will help pay for engines and can help pay for a building. We just need to be able to pay for the staffing for that fire station. So it is the very next one that will be constructed. So,
Mayor, excuse me. This does look like a beautiful development, and if you look at the, excuse me, the homes that have been developed out there, they are beautiful. So I have no doubt that that would be a beautiful addition to our community. When it comes to ag land, I'm not overly anxious to convert ag land into development property, whether it's residential or commercial. However, it does make sense in this area because it is surrounded by existing developments. At the same time, I'm thinking the fact that these are homes that would be affecting or have impact on the city of Nampa. And we really have to take that into consideration. So right now, we're playing with our impact fees. And we approved this development, and those are impact fees we just missed. And so that's something we really have to take into consideration, because not only is that impact fees we miss, but that's also impact on schools. I'm thinking somewhere with 368 lots, you've got to have children, which is going to add to our existing schools, and how are we going to fund that? But then, just as importantly, or maybe more importantly, our fire chief came before us earlier this summer, and he stated about the fire department, our fire station that is needed, number 6, and we keep approving homes in that area, but we don't have adequate protection. So are we being responsible in our decisions? We have to really consider, can we provide public safety, whether it be in the tune of our fire department or our police department, to that area and to additional 368 homes. As far as the traffic part goes, I understand the traffic. I've tried to get up and down Middleton, and it's not just certain times of the day anymore. It is a constant influx of traffic. And this is something that we really have to take into consideration. So do we continue to let development come with the projection that we're going to build the roads? Because we're frustrating our community. I do at the same time want to say I appreciate our developers, they're businessmen, they see the opportunity, the growth that's going on right now, and they do want to develop the land. They want a chance to improve their business, and I do get that as well. Councilman Hogaboam, I appreciate him. He's always the numbers guy, and I appreciate the fact that there would be a $1 million property tax base coming in the potential build-out, but it was mentioned that the potential build-out could be 7 to 10 years down the road. What I think it was 2024, something like that. So we have to take that into account also. That's projections. That's not reality.
any further discussion?
Question, Mayor. So Mark, this is for you. So Councilman Levi just brought up an issue that I wanted to talk about. So if we approve this, are they not subject to the new scheduled impact fee?
That's correct, they would not be.
Okay.
So I'd like to, Tom, I see a question on your face. So could you speak to that?
Because we are approving it now, but we don't have our fees set.
Mayor, Council Rodriguez. So yeah, we haven't adopted a new fee yet. And so back to the transition plan that we were talking about. So if the impact fee ordinance comes today, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, we were going to put a time frame after the ordinance for people to come in and build the road frontage and pay the lower fee. And then after that time frame, that luxury to pay the lower fee is not there anymore. And that's something that we've worked with the development community. So we'll be able to get the higher fee and use it for the overall connectivity of the system. And that was part of our plan. And so the fee actually doesn't come at this particular point in the plat. It comes during the building permit. So when they pull a building permit, the new fee would apply at that point.
I see, okay. All right, thank you.
And that said, that as a developer, it's an either or. Because if they don't pay the impact fee, they're going to be required to do the road improvements.
Right.
So the advantage to the impact fee is it allows you to put those funds towards, unfortunately, we would not be doing the turn lanes here at this time, but those funds, it sounds like, are being applied to the signals and the other work that needs to be done to help the traffic flow go better. Is that correct? That's
That's
my understanding.
Mayor, you can move a tremendous amount of traffic on a two-lane road as long as the intersections are not congested. So that's step one in our plan, is to get the intersections non-congested. And then we'll come back and do the widening later.
Okay, so is that going to be in a developmental agreement with the city or not, with this developer here?
What I just described there is the overall strategy if we approve the new impact fee. So if what you could do today is if you like this development, you could just approve what the staff has recommended, which is they would donate the right-of-way, they build the roadway frontage. They have a certain amount of time to under that condition, and then as that time goes, then it would be a higher impact fee at the building permit.
Okay. Excuse me, Mark, are you okay with that? Is that?
Yeah, I think the answer is it kind of depends on, with a longer-term development with phases, it's going to depend on ultimately when, comparing when the new fees are adopted and implemented and when the building permits are sought.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? So we have had a motion and we've had a second, and so at this time, it would be roll call. So let's go ahead and go to roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hoagleboom?
Yes.
Levi?
No.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okay, so that ends our public hearing this evening, and we are going to move into new business, but I'm going to pause just a minute. There's some young people sitting out here. So I'm curious who you are and what you're doing. Good for you. Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate your interest, and thank you. Local government is so important, and someday you may be the mayor or council members. So thank you for your interest. It's appreciated.
Mayor, if you don't mind, why don't you have them come introduce yourselves to us one by one?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I do. You look at it, they're all like, oh, no. Go ahead and come on up. We want to hear who you are.
You're not going to get there boldly.
And tell us what grade you're in.
Hi, my name's Karina Simplot. I'm a freshman in Nampa High School.
Good.
I'm Ethan Schmer. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Sela Peterson, and I'm a junior. I am Claire Garner. I'm a senior.
So, Madam Mayor, may I ask, who thought of this idea of coming to such a interesting council meeting?
It was our senior class president, Sebastian Griffin, suggested the idea,
So
unfortunately.
it wasn't a teacher, it was actually your,
Yeah,
okay.
So where's Sebastian?
he was not able to make it.
Would you
He's watching Monday Night Football, right? Anyway, go Bo Dogs. Your game is it Friday or Saturday?
Friday,
Okay, and where is it?
Idaho Falls.
So you guys are all four going, right?
I'm going.
All right, go Bo Dogs. All right.
Tell Sebastian he's nailed for not being here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Are there any other questions?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Amy has a pen for you, so she's going to get you a pen so that you have a pen.
Moving back there.
Yep, she got it.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, if you feel like you need to go, though, we're not going to be, offended by that. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, they're going to stay, so that's good.
There you go.
Okay, so actually, our meeting is almost towards the end. We have a few new business items that I don't think will take too long. So rather than taking a break, we're going to take a break before we move into executive session. Are you guys good with that?
Yes.
Okay. So new business, we're into 6.2 at this time, and this is an action item. This is the first reading of an ordinance for modification of the Nampa Electrical Code. And is Patrick here? Yeah, Patrick, would you like to just make a comment before we move into this?
Mayor and council, yes, I would. This is just a little bit of house cleaning we decided to do. There were some older sections that were adopted as provisions for the electrical code that were above and beyond the National Electrical Code. You know, things like being able to have non-licensed individuals put in their own temporary power, which was probably not a good idea. And then also just clearing up some of the issues about wiring raceways as it applies to the newer electrical code. So again, it's just cleaning up old language. It's basically subtracting some restrictions that were added onto our code years ago.
I'm not sure on that.
I'm good.
Okay. So actually, item number 6.2 and 6.3 kind of go together. And so after we read the, do the first reading of the ordinance, which there is a request to pass under suspension of rules, you could also, behind that is the summary of publication for this preceding ordinance, so we could just put both into one more motion.
You want me
It's
to?
fine. No, it's fine.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council amending Title 4, Chapter 4, Sections 444 and 445 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the National Electrical Code relating to the qualifications required for installers of electrical wiring and the scope of applicability of said code, providing an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, and orders and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Okay, so, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance for the modification to the Nampa Electrical Code under suspension of rules,
I'll second that.
And
and
summary,
with the summary of publication.
and Victor, you second that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog? Skog?
Vanished.
Okay.
On,
Vanished.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
yes.
Okay, item 6.4. This is the CDBG fiscal year 2016 and 2017 reallocation discussion, and Beth, Robin is here to speak to it.
Madam Mayor, unless you really want to speak, I'm going to so move as far as in reading. Unless you're adding something further, I would love to have him speak. So we have a second, and he can discuss it, right? Okay.
We're actually just going to introduce Matt.
Okay.
So Matt is new to the city. He joined us about a month ago. Matthew Jameson is his last name. He's our Community Development Program Administrator, and we are so excited to have him. He came from us from the banking community, doing SBA loans. So you will see his face as we move forward with CDBG. He'll be attending these meetings with us, so we're excited to have Matt.
I'm sorry, Matt, what your last name?
Jameson.
Jameson, okay, thanks.
Pleasure to officially meet you.
Well, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here.
I'm excited. I've joined an incredibly talented team. So,
We
it's
bribed
been
him.
a few months, but yes.
You took him to lunch, did you? Okay.
I
Awesome.
think we're going to do good things.
Thank you so
I'll second the motion.
Already have a second.
Okay.
Who's this thing? Rodriguez?
Victor seconded.
Yes. Okay, is there any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I do have questions. I apologize. I didn't want to be out of order, or I would have said that when you were up here, Robin. I'm noticing on page 242 in our packet that it talks about under clarifications and exclusions, and it says that it would exclude temporary protection. And so what does that mean? Is that like when the roof comes off to protect it from the elements, or what?
So I'm going to defer to Brian, Brian Foster. So he's the one that did the bid for the Family Justice Center and has the more knowledge about exactly what's in the bid. So I'm going to defer to him.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you've seen in your packet, what we're proposing is these These funds would go towards the construction of the roofing, HVAC, and electrical upgrades for the Family Justice Center. And the exclusions, no, they would not exclude safety, things like that, anything like that. That's not really what that refers to. It would be a complete design package and a complete build-out.
So what does that mean? Did I miss something?
And what section are you referring to, Counselor?
It's on page 242 of our packet.
Since he
Excuse me
doesn't
just a
have
moment.
the
Let me get there for you. Okay, so this would be under a letter from Garland DBS Inc., roofing material and service proposal. And it's down right shortly before they signed. And it says clarifications, exclusions. It says bonds are included, masonry work is excluded, temporary protection is excluded, and any work not exclusively described in the above proposal scope of work is excluded. And I was just wondering, what does temporary protection is excluded cover? What does that mean?
Yeah, I see that. Thank you for pointing that out. I will have to get follow-up on that.
Okay. My concern being, because I have real limited knowledge of the building world, but if something were to happen, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if we're taking the roof off and there's inclement weather, then that opens us up to potential further issues, and where does that funding come from?
Right. Yeah, and I don't believe that that's what that's referring to. As the site is opened up, it would be on their responsibility to cover it and make sure that there's no further damage with weather or anything like that. So I can do a follow-up on that and just get a clarification.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Well,
There's already been a motion, hasn't there, made? We're just discussing now. I
right.
call for the vote.
Okay. And actually, with that, we can defer to staff to resolve that issue, but this is the approval for the reallocation of the funds, which if we support the reallocation of the funds as suggested, it would be with the requirement of staff confirming that.
Yeah, and just a reminder, so this is just to get the okay to move forward on this. We'll go through the public process still, so we'll come back next city council meeting and go through the formal amendments and the public process with a comment period.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
And if it helps at all, whenever there's a construction, especially one involving specifications, there's a standard of care that's built into the specifications and the requirement of the contractor to protect not only public safety, but the materials underneath, otherwise he assumes a liability. So this is an odd thing to have written down there, but the reality behind the standard of care that's built into construction practice covers any concern that you would have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Randy. Okay, with that, is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Everfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Thank you. Our next item is to authorize the mayor to sign the economic development agreement with Autoval and AVM Holdings LLC. And this has been reviewed and approved by the attorney.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is an economic development agreement. This is a really similar agreement to what we have done previously in the past. The first one we did was with Go-Go Squeeze for their project, and then we did one with Heartland RV in 2015. So I have worked with Caleb Rope from Autoval since, I guess, February, so about the last 8 months. And he is here tonight in case you have any specific questions about the business or what they're doing at the site. They anticipate creating approximately 350 positions. These are positions that pay well above our county average wage. They are high-skilled positions within the construction industry, with their average wage identified at $44,600. As a reminder, our county average wage is right around $35,000. And then their total capital investment that they anticipate between real and personal property is just over $100 million for the entire project. So this is a great project for Nampa. We were excited to be able to work with them and have them pick Nampa as their preferred location. This was definitely a competitive project. They do work all over the West. They were carefully considering the Reno area as well as the valley here. And so they did receive a tax reimbursement incentive from the Department of Commerce as well. And as part of that incentive, they require a local community match that demonstrates that we also desire to have them here in Nampa. So that is what is before you tonight for your consideration. It would be a sum not to exceed $75,000 that we would offset their building permit fees for. We do have that amount in our budget for FY19 under the Economic Development Incentive Program. It's verified by our finance director. And so that would be a transfer from general fund to the Development Services budget. So, any questions?
No, but I see Caleb here. I appreciate your investment in our community.
Yes.
Means a lot. And I would gladly make the motion to authorize this amount.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Other than, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, our next item, 6.6 on the agenda, is an action item to award a bid and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the water improvements project with Cougar Excavation LLC in the amount of $576,767.80.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Who's second?
Victor.
Okay, thank you. Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 6.7 on the agenda is to award a bid to Granite Excavation and authorize the mayor to sign a contract for the Greenhurst Road rebuild, Midland to Juniper project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
And Haverfield?
Yes.
6.8 on the agenda is to accept the right-of-way and temporary easement donation from Walmart and authorize the mayor to sign the deed of dedication.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Missed that one.
Sorry, that was,
I had a second, and he,
Rick
Councilman
first.
Hogan motioned.
Okay, got it. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
And Hogaboom?
Yes.
and the next and last action item is 6.9, and that is to award a bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for annual miscellaneous asphalt patch project to Hess Construction in the amount of $154,250.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Did you catch it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
And Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay, so I will be looking for a motion to adjourn into executive session. We will be considering 7.1 and 7.2, which is, we're adjourning into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061E to consider preliminary negotiations involving matters of trade or commerce in which the governing body is in competition with governing bodies in other states or nations. We have two items underneath that heading. The other one is to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061A to consider hiring a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent wherein the respective qualities of individuals are to be evaluated in order to fill a particular vacancy or need.
So moved.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Mayor, we'll be coming back here